Welcome friends, in this one, let's take a look at answering this question. The 1997 AP Calculus BC solved multiple choice, that's what I'm doing here. Question number 3 from that test. A function f given by f of x equals 3x to the fifth minus 4x cubed minus 3x has a relative maximum value at some x. So what we need to do, of course, is first just form f prime of x. Begin with that. So use the power rule on each term. 5 times 3 is 15, and then 5 minus 1 is 4. 3 times 4 is negative 12 there with the negative. 3 minus 1 is 2, so it's negative 12x squared, and then minus 3 as the last term. Take this derivative here, 15x to the fourth minus 12x squared, okay, minus 3, set that equal to 0. Notice that you can divide a 3 from each term. So 15 divided by 3 is 5x to the fourth. Negative 12 divided by 3 will give you here a negative 4x squared. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so negative 1 is equal to 0. Now we just have to solve this equation, so you can do it by doing the following. 5x to the fourth minus 5x to the second plus 1x to the second. So I've rewritten the middle term as negative 5x squared plus 1x squared. 5x to the negative fourth and 5x to the positive second. Those two have a common factor of 5x squared that you can pull outside. What's left within there then is just x squared. And then after that, minus 1. And the next part there would be plus 1. You got to show it explicitly. You're factoring positive 1 from x squared minus 1, leaving x squared minus 1 set equal to 0 the entire time. From here, group it, so 5x squared plus 1 multiplying x squared minus 1 is equal to 0. For the purposes of deciding whether we have a relative max or min, remember, we have a specific condition that we have to match, was that the function has to do something like this, which amounts then to, remember that on the left side, you should have that f prime should be greater than 0, because you're rising, climbing a hill. And on the right side, f prime should be less than 0, which means you're sliding down a hill. When you look at the actual factor form of the derivative, this part right here, 5x squared plus 1, this is always greater than 0 right here. So that doesn't contribute anything to the sign. The part that contributes something to the sign is x squared minus 1, because that can be positive or negative. 5x squared is always positive, because you're squaring. We add 1, it just keeps it positive the entire time. In other words, this is always a positive value here. So the sign change has to come from x squared minus 1. You can either do a test. So look at the roots of x squared minus 1. X squared minus 1 has roots of negative 1. Followed by positive 1. That tells you already on a real test that you could take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those 5 answers, and reduce the possibilities to only 2 of them, either A or only E. That's it. That's already better. So you can guess, 50% instead of, 20%, 1 out of 5. Let's check using 0 as the value. So when I do that in the f prime, I would have 15 times 0 raised to the fourth, minus 12 times 0 squared, and then minus 3. That's negative 3, which is less than 0. What that tells you is the following already, essentially. That it cannot be positive 1. The reason it cannot be positive 1 is that the derivative here is negative. If you have a derivative that's negative to the left of the value, then the actual function itself has to be doing something like this, essentially. See this? In other words, the derivative on the left is f prime less than 0. And therefore, very likely on the right side, that would be f prime greater than 0. What that is telling you as a result is that the answer has to be right here, negative 1. In other words, the answer is A. If you wanted to, if you weren't sure, based on this work, you would have to grab a value from here. Like, for example, x equals negative 2. Punch it into the derivative. But that's a lot of work because the derivative is quite complicated there, okay? So in other words, f of prime of negative 2. You work that out. I did do that, and it gave a value of 189, which in other words is a positive derivative, confirming that negative 1 is the answer to the question. If that didn't work for you, one last thing that you can try to do is try to remember the appearance of the x squared minus 1 factor, because that's the one that decides the sign. When you look at it, it's a parabola, x squared minus 1. Look, x squared minus 1. And where that goes from positive to negative, again, is right here. And that's what decides the sign. In other words, these are all different ways of thinking and deciding ultimately that the answer should be A, negative 1. And that is it. So thank you, friends. Please leave a like, please subscribe. I'll see you in another video.